Mount up! We're coming!
Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, and I have just gotten back from a very toasty day out at TCO Performance Center. First outdoor practice, and I was prepared in terms of the sunscreen, but my body not prepared for spending that much time outside. So I'm going to have to work my way into training camp, being outdoors for really long portions of time. I mean, it's truly me who is exhausted after practice, not the guys who are out there on the field, right? So, a lot to get to, though, tonight in terms of some news and notes from day 2 of Minnesota Vikings practice. And of course, I've got some players for you, a decently long conversation with Dallas Turner that was pretty insightful, along with Jonathan Grenard and Byron Murphy Jr. spoke as well after practice. So I want to bring you those things. Got you some more video from practice as well to show you guys and talk and answer questions. So start to jump right in. I'll go through my notes, get your questions in, and then we will have the usual camp practice night Q&A conversation. So whatever is on your mind, questions and thoughts about the Minnesota Vikings and practice, let me know. But the first thing to start out with is Justin Jefferson. About halfway through the practice, maybe, I don't know, 40% of the way through the practice, Jefferson made a really nice catch on the sidelines. Great throw by JJ McCarthy, let it loose along the sideline, kind of a deep outbreaking 18-yard reception. And after that, we didn't see Jefferson. He was just standing on the sideline with a towel on his head and talking to everybody, and looked like everything was okay. And we expected, okay, I guess he'll just, take a couple of reps off and then go back in. But we didn't see him go back in at any point in the practice, which I want to talk about what that means when one wide receiver goes out of a practice for the Vikings, because that could be a thing in the first couple weeks of the season with Jordan Addison and a potential suspension. So we got the tiniest snapshot today of what the depth chart looks like if there is a top wide receiver that is not playing. So Jefferson didn't come back in at any point, but he did speak after practice and just called it tightness. Now, we've seen enough of these over the years to get a sense of when something is serious and when something is not serious. And if the player doesn't even go into the training room, then it's probably not serious. And if the player talks also after practice, then it's probably not serious. We'll see if Justin Jefferson practices tomorrow. If he doesn't, I'm guessing, though, it'll be when they get back into pads, and then he'll be good to go. Otherwise, if he had left and gone back into the trainer's room and missed the rest of practice and wasn't standing out there, or if he was due to talk with us today, if he had skipped his media thing and then, or, delayed it for another day, then you might have thought, okay, this might be something to watch. But in this case, we'll just take his word for it that Jefferson had some tightness somewhere, leg, I don't know. And that's what you kind of assume when you hear tightness. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to go into any details, but I don't think it's anything to pay too much attention to. The more interesting part of it was just what they looked like without him. That with Jefferson in the lineup, the start of practice was a little bit joggy, but wasn't going too abnormally. After Jefferson was out, and I know we're talking about the best wide receiver in the world, so naturally it's not going to look as smooth after that. But when Jefferson was on the sideline, it was a more disjointed practice. There were some more issues offensively, and it was not as smooth as it was in day one. I think there were a lot more problems with the offense. There was a false start. JJ McCarthy dropped a snap and then had to run. had a couple incompletions. One of them actually when Jefferson was in the lineup, where he overthrew him, and then they had to have a conversation on the sideline. There were multiple times today where McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell were standing there watching. They have these big video screens, and I wish that we could see them because it would be great to see a replay. They have these huge video screens that show a replay of every single rep. So O'Connell can just look over there and go, all right, I see, here's what happened to the quarterback. It's like real time film analysis that they have on the sideline. Great little feature there. But you can tell sometimes when something wasn't executed totally right because they'll stop and they'll look over at the board. And it does, it's not always. And maybe they're looking at it and saying, great job. But there were a few times where there were incompletions or there was a throw that looked like kind of a quick hitter type of thing that he decided not to let it rip. And they had a long conversation after that. There were still, typical good JJ McCarthy throws. There was one where it might have been a sack, but he was rolling to his left and then delivered kind of a rocket to Ty Felton, who was one of the receivers that got an opportunity with Justin Jefferson sidelined for half of this practice. The first wide receiver that came in was Rondale Moore. And that has been something that I wasn't sure about at all. What is Rondale Moore going to practice? Is he going to practice just a little? Is he still coming back from that injury? And not only is he back from the injury, but he was the next man up. And part of that, I'm sure, is just the fact that he's a veteran. Lucky Jackson also came in there. We saw a little bit of Thayer Thomas. They did rotating for guys taking that spot after Jefferson was out, but Rondale Moore was the first one that got in there. And at one point, they actually tried to throw a deep ball that was kind of a back shoulder to Rondale Moore, and it looked like he was going to make the play. And then Isaiah Rodgers got a hand on it. And that's another one of my notes from practice is that Isaiah Rodgers, from OTAs to minicamp to the start of training camp, has looked to me like a starting outside corner. He's got great physical tools and he gets his hands on the football. He always seems to be sticky in coverage. He moves extremely well. I mean, it stood out to me when he was returning kicks in minicamp, or at least catching it, accelerating a few steps. You just saw that instant acceleration, but he's had his hand on the football a couple of times here early in camp. That's standing out as well. Being in man coverage with someone as quick and fast as Rondale Moore, and then being able to break up the pass was pretty impressive there. And then, I briefly mentioned Ty Felton, but Felton was another guy where I didn't know, is he going to be behind Lucky Jackson? Is he going to be behind Thayer Thomas? These guys have been on the team for a couple years. Like, how slow are they going to take it with Felton? You look back at what he did in Maryland. I mean, he only played one real full season and had a great year last year, got him drafted in the third round, but it was only really that one full year for Felton. So the question was, well, how much is it going to be of him just developing and, kind of sitting behind these other guys? But he was one of the first ones out there to get some reps with JJ McCarthy, and then kind of ran a deep comeback around the sideline, and McCarthy let one rip and he made the play. There was another one that was it was out of bounds because it was not a good throw by Sam Howell, who, if you were hoping to hear much better news about Sam Howell, I'm sorry, I don't have it for today. It was kind of the same. He started out practice with a couple completions, and then it devolved from there and was not great. But Howell overthrew Ty Felton, but Felton kept sort of going. And even though he was out of bounds into double coverage, again, it was a bad choice and a bad throw by Sam Howell, but still into the double coverage and flying out of bounds, he was able to make the catch. I've been impressed multiple times with Ty Felton and his ability to track the football and his hands, which were a question and will remain a question, obviously, until he's playing in real games, but they were a question coming out. I haven't seen drops from him, and I've seen some contested catches from Ty Felton so far, and on some real routes, like a deep comeback or a crossing route, not just, your typical go route or screen pass or something like that. So a lot of other wide receivers getting in the game today. Again, not a great run for Sam Howell. The practice, it was a bit of a slog. And after the practice, I'll get to a few other things that are on my mind as well. But After the practice, everybody sort of stood around and Kevin O'Connell talked to the team for an unusual amount of time after the second practice. And I can't put words in his mouth. I can't hear him from several hundred feet away, but it felt to me like, hey, guys, let's make this better in the future, because it was a messy practice from my perspective, and it's got to get better from here after I thought a pretty good start. But that was, the first practice, second practice. I mean, we're talking about still no pads yet, just getting up in the ramp up period. But they had some kind of silly mistakes, like jumping offside on defense multiple times, false start on offense. And then another thing to take away from today's practice was Levi Drake Rodriguez is known for his excitement level, and he got a little bit too excited today. And so actually did Jeff Okudah at one point, where Okudah didn't slow up on a play with Jefferson, and Jefferson, that was the play where he had the tightness or whatever, but he kind of, I don't want to say he made a tackle, but he didn't not make a tackle. And there was some physicality, and you don't ever want Justin Jefferson hitting the ground, but he went down after that catch. So there was that. And then there was Levi Drake Rodriguez being pulled out for a play after bowling over an offensive lineman, which there's no pads on. It's not fair for the offensive lineman. Like, you can't go 110% ramming into somebody when they don't have pads on it. It's just not fair to the offensive lineman, because they just got to, take the hit there. So he ran somebody over. They kind of had to, take him out for a couple of plays, and then he came back in. But maybe not everybody fully understood. Like, this is not the physical part of practice. You want more physical play for sure, but not this physical. The other thing that was happening today was Josh Metellus did not practice. Now, they say he had an ankle injury, and we'll just believe that as it is, but maybe a sign of something on the way with an ankle injury for Josh Metellus. Maybe it's like an earache for TJ Hawkinson, possibly. I'm only speculating there a little bit, that maybe it's that, or maybe tomorrow we walk out there and find out that they've worked out an extension for Josh Metellus, because you don't want to practice on the day that you're getting an extension done, because what if you got hurt out there while your agent was inside still, signing the final paperwork or something. So I don't know if that might have been it, or if Josh Metellus just tweaked an ankle on the first day, but did not seem serious. And Metellus was out there watching practice and walking fine on his ankle injury. It would be nice if they could get that taken care of and out of the way. It seems so much that Metellus wants to be a Viking long term. The Vikings want Josh Metellus, and they have to find a middle ground, and they'll get there. And also, Metellus's agent has a bit of a reputation of a guy who gets deals done, Drew Rosenhaus. And he also represents, I believe he represents Christian Darrisaw, and they got a deal done with him on Josh Oliver. They got it, I think, right? Josh Oliver was the other guy he represented. And I think Christian Darrisaw. I want to be 100% right on that. But they have a relationship with Rosenhaus and his side, and they've gotten plenty of deals done with him through the years. So this should be workable, and we'll see if he comes back with his ankle feeling perfectly fine once he gets that contract extension. But we'll wait and see. It's just that did ping in my mind that, TJ Hawkinson had the back issue right when they were just about ready to get that deal done. Maybe that is the case here. Another note from today about Josh Metellus was Brian Flores was asked about Metellus playing the more traditional safety position, was how the question was phrased, because it's true that Metellus over the first day of camp and then back to mini camp was playing in Cam Bynum's spot. And when Metellus was asked about it after practice yesterday, he said, well, hey, I came up in the league as a safety, so I'm comfortable doing that. And that's a position that, I've played before. So, all right, well, it looks like that's the position he's going to play. When we asked Flores about it and the word traditional was used, Flores said, well, there's nothing really traditional about me and my defense. And I would agree with that, that Flores is outside the box and doesn't, always do things traditionally. At the same time, he mentioned, well, he's going to be up on the D line. He's going to be in the nickel corner spot. He's going to be, here, there, and everywhere. And what I started to wonder about was, is that going to be more of a third down thing now? Is it going to be, hey, on third down, when Theo Jackson is back there in a dime situation, then you can move Metellus around and have him in the box and have him essentially play a hybrid linebacker and blitzer and that kind of thing. But on first and second down, maybe he is playing more of a 3-4 base free safety type of position. It's also possible that in years past, Harrison Smith has been the guy who's hovering around the box and he's moving up and dropping back. You can envision the games he played with Aaron Rodgers for all those years. Maybe that's Metellus. Maybe that's Metellus's role now. And what Cam Bynum was doing last year will be more like Harrison Smith on first and second. With Flores, the possibilities are kind of endless. And that's why when we talk about Metellus changing roles, I tend to lean toward, well, this man knows what he's doing when it comes to carving out roles. I have some concerns about Metellus because of the long speed. I think he's got great quickness, but a lot of those deep safeties, they have the only way I can describe it is long speed, where if you got to go 40 yards across the field on a particular play, some guys are really good at sustaining a high level of speed and they get over there quickly. And I don't know that that's been him because we haven't seen it. And until we see that type of role and him playing there for multiple games, it's going to be a little harder to know. That's not something that you can necessarily pick up on a 40 time or something like that, but he isn't a guy who ran a 4.3 and isn't a guy that I look at as, wow, if someone's 20 yards away, he's closing the gap quickly. I look at more as someone's flying across the middle of the field and he's got to take 3 steps and then drill him. That's what Josh Metellus does really well, shooting gaps, blitzing. So we'll see. But at least Flores kind of said, hey, let's not be saying that Josh Metellus is just going to play a regular routine and normal safety position here. Another thing to bring up is that Max Brosmer did get some reps today. And I expected that after it was so rough from QB2 and QB3 that Brosmer would get his chance. And one of the first play, I think, was a handoff. And the second play from Brosmer, he ran a play action and he threw a deep ball that I think if it was a good wide receiver, it would have been on the money. And it was not a good wide receiver. Dante Fleming, who I don't know. I mean, just there's a lot of guys, right? You need a lot of receivers. You need a lot of people to be out there running routes. And you never know who could find their stride and turn it around. But I just haven't seen anything from Fleming yet. This is, I think, the guy who's probably last on the entire wide receiver chart. And so he threw it up to him, kind of the third teamer. He got his feet caught on the corner and the ball just, wasn't completed. But I thought it was a well-executed play from Brosmer. They ran a couple of screens with him. At very least, he took the third most snaps in this practice. And I think it is a sign of things to come with a competition between Max Brosmer and Brett Rippon. And after Brosmer took no snaps on day one, I kind of walked out like, did I miss, something, or was I off in minicamp and thinking that Brosmer looked really good? And at least today, okay, like we weren't crazy that they're going to get Max Brosmer a decent amount of reps. And I think he will get a lot of preseason playing time when he's playing quarterback, whether it was running that play action play or whether it was just a couple of screens or handoffs. He just looks like a guy who gets the mental side of it right. And I think he has a strong enough arm to throw the ball downfield. There's another guy that stuck out to me a little today, and I'll bring him up as kind of the deep cut of the day. How about this? This is like the deepest deep cut of the day. And then I'll toss a attempt to read between the lines. Okay. So the deep cut of the day is Xavier Scott. All right. Raise your hands if you know who Xavier Scott is. I will tell you. Xavier Scott was picked up as an undrafted free agent by the Indianapolis Colts in 2023. He played at Maine, and he was a wide receiver / running back at Maine. So he kind of did both, was in the backfield, caught a lot of passes, averaged, I don't know, 7 yards a carry as a running back, something like that. So kind of a hybrid type of backfield player. And he was let go by the Colts. The Vikings picked him up last year. He was on the practice squad. And now here he has some opportunity to show something. He got quite a few reps today, caught a couple of passes, and looked pretty smooth doing it. And I mean, I don't know, with the comments from, and I'm not saying he's going to make the team as RB3, but with the comments from O'Connell about not being the most excited about Ty Chandler, where he pointed out that Ty Chandler had explosive runs and then huge mistakes in pass protection. Maybe there is room for one more guy to do something interesting back there. And I had wondered about Trey Stewart, who was from Jacksonville State. He got a rep or two, but Scott actually got a fair amount. So I'm curious to see if Xavier Scott gets an opportunity to kick return, what he looks like in preseason, if he's a guy that they want to keep around on the practice squad. So that's your deep, deep cut. And my one attempt to read between the lines. Once again, Zamiah Vaughn got a lot of work with the second unit. And I think sometimes it's like, was that the first rep? Was that the second rep? Was that, things like that. But I think that the first rep with the second team was Jeff Okudah and Zamiah Vaughn out there, and actually not Dwight McGlothern with the second team. Now he got in eventually. And of course, Mekhi Blackman was in with the second team as well. But I'm getting the sense that they're seeing what we're seeing with Zamiah Vaughn as well. And so I asked Brian Flores about it, and his answer was essentially, it means something to Zamiah Vaughn, which is kind of Flores's wink nod. You're onto something with this guy. That's something that they talk about all the time, like how important football is to these players, and just talked about his physical tools and his height and his length and things like that. So I think with Vaughn, they may have something here. Pads are going to matter. It's only the second practice and carrying over from a very good mini camp. But the more that I watch Zamiah Vaughn, the more I see him move and cover wide receivers, the more I think I could see it. I could see him making this team. I could see him being on this depth chart at some point. So there is I think, very serious battle going on. And someone like uh Mekhi Blackman, just for example, now he was playing some nickel with the second team. And I wonder if he is kind of they like to have a clone of the backups. They like to have, hey, if this guy goes out, here's the guy who's been practicing his job. And I wonder if he's kind of the Byron Murphy clone, because Murphy plays outside and inside, and they've done that with Mekhi Blackman. But as of right now, through 2 days, it's been exclusively Jeff Okudah when they are in nickel playing on the outside, and Blackman has played a lot on the inside. So you got Vaughn kind of emerging. You have, Mekhi Blackman fighting for a spot. That's right. That's a good reminder. Good reminder. I need a scroll. It's only day 2. Thank you. I should have thought that beforehand. I was putting together all this B-roll and these sounds. It's only been 2 practices. Yes, hold on. We'll get this. Here we go. It's only been 2 practices, right? So I don't have to say it over and over and over and over again. It's only been 2 practices, but I think that the larger sample is that Zamiah Vaughn is showing something. Yeah, Nick, I don't think that. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. Brian Flores can be a hard guy to read, because Nick was saying, like, was he late? Because Flores said to my question, he said a couple of times, you have to be on time. And so that's possible. I wasn't sure whether to take that as a hint about Vaughn, or just to any young player that it's very important, because these coaches are obsessed with being on time. So was he referring to everybody, or was he kind of hinting that he hadn't been on time? I think if he hadn't been on time this early enough, then he wouldn't be getting those second team reps. So I don't want to make that jump. I think he was talking, because he went from talking specifically about Vaughn and his skill set and just what he's seen from him so far and his first impressions, to then general terms. So maybe we don't make that jump. I don't know. If I see him, I'll ask him to clarify what he meant there. But one way or the other, it's a legit battle. It is a legit battle. Mekhi Blackmon, Jeff Okudah, Zamiah Vaughn. These guys are all in the mix here. Dwight McGlothern, it seems, might be a little bit behind in starting. And very clearly, Isaiah Rodgers and Byron Murphy are the guys. Those are your starting outside corners in 2025. And maybe, see, hold on. I got to give the scroll to myself because I kind of want to plant a flag with Isaiah Rodgers, but it's only been 2 practices. I'm using the scroll on myself here. It's only been 2 practices. Isaiah Rodgers has looked great through minicamp and through these first 2 practices. And when Brian Flores really, really likes somebody, oftentimes this is what happens. And I asked Byron, actually, you'll hear it coming up. I asked Byron Murphy about uh, just Isaiah Rodgers and what he's seen. And then I also asked Byron about why it seems like they elevate the play of cornerbacks in this system. And he talked about the environment of just the other guys that you're working with in the secondary being useful and really helpful. I also think that Flores has a really good understanding of his players' skill sets and what they can do, which does open the door for somebody like Jeff Okudah, which does open the door for an undrafted free agent to make noise, or for a guy who has gotten to his peak at 27 years old, but hasn't really had as much opportunity like Isaiah Rodgers. The physical skill is there. When he's one-on-one with somebody, there is not a lot of separation. And the play he made on Rondale Moore today was absolutely terrific. So let's see. We can go one way or the other. We can go with some sound from today, or we can answer some questions. So how about this? Why don't we answer some questions first so I don't get way behind and the people who asked the questions are still here. And then I'll bring you some sound a little later in the show. So let's also get the B-roll going here of some practice video. I'm very proud of my new camera that I've been taking this video with. So I hope you all enjoy it while I answer your questions, because also this particular drill is one of my favorites. And I had to get it on video, where guys get the ball and then they jump on this mattress. And this is exactly what my brother and I did when I was like 9 and he was 12, where we would just run and jump on the mattress with a football, like we were jumping over the pile. So I enjoy this drill, but I was trying to actually videotape the quarterbacks throwing, but I got this wonderful drill here instead. So let's answer some questions. We'll start with Andy. Says, any first impressions of Rondale Moore? Vikings included a catch and run of his in their highlight reel yesterday, and he looked quick. You're exactly right from the highlight reel that I have felt like, and I got to see him closer today, just being outside. If you look at this angle that we had today, it's pretty great to be able to see everything. So I got a better sense with Rondale Moore today. I think he looks like Rondale Moore. And if Isaiah Rodgers hadn't made a phenomenal play on a back shoulder throw from JJ McCarthy, it was a very accurate throw, I thought. Moore would have had a great back shoulder catch. He reached back for it. It was right there. And Rodgers just knifed an arm out there to knock it down. But Moore had some separation. He showed some speed. And there was another, I think it was a quick out to him where he had to, go 7 yards and then snap outside. And the ball was there on time. And it looked good. I mean, it looked like the guy who played for the Arizona Cardinals a couple years ago. And I think that is a very early one of those, hey, how much can we take away from the first 2 practices? Because as you see at the bottom, it's only been 2 practices. But I think when a guy like that is coming off of an injury, then we can say, like, hey, him looking as fast as he looked, like, that matters. That is a early camp, first 2 days development. And I think it's big for them, but we're going to see more of him tested when we get into the pads and as we go along and he plays some preseason games, but looks like Rondale Moore, and that's a good thing for them. Kit Fisto's dental plan. You're going to have to explain that one. Says, what stood out as notably consistent or inconsistent from day 1 of day 2? I'll tell you what's been consistent from the first 2 days. The offensive linemen don't have pads. I might have to make a scroll. There was no pads. Jonathan Grenard is just murdering everything in front of him. Jonathan Grenard has come across from day 1 of workouts. I mean, we're going back to April when he did his first press conference, and you'll hear from him a little later in the show. He seems extremely focused and ready to go and motivated to win this year. And he has shown up ready to go, ready to practice. Unfortunately for Logan Brown, who is left tackle on the second team right now, undrafted free agent Logan Brown, also represented by my friend Jeremiah Searles. What I texted Searles in the middle of practice and I said, your guy's learning a lot from Jonathan Grenard today, because Grenard just completely smoked him on one play, but then he got Brian O'Neill later in the practice. He's just looking fantastic. Looks like he is juiced up for this season. Now, he was one of the best edge rushers in the league last year. This isn't breaking news that Jonathan Grenard looks great, but it's been consistent. He looks really, really strong. And aside from that, I mean, we're only talking about a handful of plays so far that we've seen 11 on 11. As you're seeing from the warm-up drills, like this is a lot of practice, is working on individual types of things. And then, there's only a handful of actual, 11 on 11 reps that we get to see. I did capture some warm-ups here with wide receivers that you get to see there. But I don't know. I guess we're going to have to let that play out. I mean, I have thought that the cornerbacks have looked pretty good. I've thought that Jordan Addison has been on point so far, but I'm mostly telling you, hey, these good players who are really good, they've looked great. Didn't see, and I'll have to check with this with some of my fellow writers. I didn't see Will Fries taking too many reps today, may not have taken any at right guard. So that may be kind of a day by day type of thing. Son of a Beaver says, did Max Brosmer throw today? Also, how did the second and third string DBs look? Yeah, I mentioned Brosmer with, he only got 2 or 3 actual throws in, but he looks a little more in command. And the thing that I liked about one rep, and it's one rep, I don't need to scroll for that for Max Brosmer, but the thing that I liked from him is that he came in and ran a play action play and threw it on time down the field in the general location of where it was supposed to go, but he didn't hang on to the football. He wasn't looking scared. He looked like a pro quarterback stepping in to these couple of reps, and can't always say the same for what we've seen for the other quarterbacks on the roster. It was not a horrendous day for Sam Howell, but it wasn't a good day either. Took a sack on a play that was supposed to be a deep ball, and just the worst thing you can do back there in practice is take sacks, because then the receivers feel like, what am I doing out here? If the ball's not even coming out, I'm just running around on some grass on a nice day in Minnesota. And some of that was frustrating, I think, from Howell, as well as the inaccuracy, some of the decision making. But as far as how the second and third string defensive backs look, so this is the thing, when you have on your second team Jeff Okudah and Mekhi Blackman, and now this emerging undrafted free agent Zamiah Vaughn, like that's looked pretty good. The second unit looks pretty good. And then I didn't even mention Dwight McGlothern as well. So those guys as a second unit are, I think, quite strong. But as far as, is Okudah going to be the starter? Is Blackman going to, beat him out? Or eventually, as the summer goes along, how's that going to go? Could we be shocked by Zamiah Vaughn making this, emergence? I don't think so, because I think that Flores prefers veteran players on his unit. But there are things to be still worked out with who's going to play how much and when. As of right now, it looks like Okudah, if it started today, would be the starter, but we are a long way from it actually starting. Matt says, what's the update on Jeff Okudah watch? Formal apology for Rob E. forthcoming. Well, we just have to see how this plays out when it comes to Okudah, because I know that Rob has been a big supporter on a nightly basis of Okudah, and I think that everybody loves that story. That is a training camp story as old as time, as a guy who was a former top draft pick who a team signs to try to give one more shot in the league as a starter. Hey, maybe we're the ones that can figure it out with him. We can find the role. He'll be different here. And my skepticism is based on the fact that it usually doesn't work. And the times that the Vikings have done it before, and I know Jawan Williams wasn't the third overall pick, but it was the same sort of idea. Flores loves this guy. He's big, he's lanky. He was a second round draft pick, and it just, didn't really work out for Jawan Williams. And there's a number of other guys that they've tried this with as well. So I think it's fair to be patient with the Jeff Okudah conversation. And coming out of 2023, they were ready to start Mekhi Blackmon. And so that made me lean a little bit more toward, I still think that they want Mekhi Blackmon to win this job, but sometimes it works. Sometimes a team does find somebody who they get the right position for, the right scheme, the right role. And, I noticed today that they sent Okudah on a cornerback blitz and it blew up a run play. And that is the one thing about Jeff Okudah in his history that you'll see is that he has been excellent in terms of being a run stopper. And it's possible that his physical play just meets what they want to do here really, really well. So can you hang on for dear life in man coverage where it's been a real struggle for Okudah, but then play in zones, bring your physical presence and your tackling ability, lock up with some bigger wide receivers when we ask you to do that. And, you've got a veteran starter. I still think it's on Mekhi Blackmon to show that he needs to be that guy or that he can be that guy who is starting. And maybe it is a little bit of a lack of size, but Blackmon was a really good tackler in 2023. Also could be that Blackmon is coming back from a very serious injury that was suffered 1 year ago, but that doesn't mean, he's had many opportunities to actually play real football. And that's why we let these things develop over training camp. And I think that was also Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's answer when he was asked about the secondary of, I think he alluded to this. I don't think he straight up said it, but kind of alluded to, hey, these things morph as a training camp goes on. And last year they had Andrew Booth Jr. and a Caleb Evans early on. And at the end, it's Shaq Griffin and Stephon Gilmore. So, they barely practiced with their starting corners last year. So there's time here, but everybody wants that story to work out. And I feel like I'm a little bit of the bad guy if I'm the one who says, I don't know, historically, it hasn't worked out that good. And I think it's a little hard to evaluate him so far. I think he's done well, but, no pads and that kind of thing. Where's my scroll? Yep, it's only been 2 practices. So he is, hard to evaluate. His physical tools are phenomenal. He's incredibly big. He was walking off the field with Brian Flores today, and a lot of the corners sort of look Flores close to in the eye. He's not the tallest guy. Jeff Okudah towered over Brian Flores walking off the field. So if they can find, and look, I'm a reporter. I tell stories. So if they can find this guy who was the number 3 overall pick and have him be a key player for them, great story. So I'm not against it. I'm just a little more, let's not jump the gun because he's starting on day 2. Slaw says, how do we properly evaluate depth wide receiver competitions if the backup quarterbacks are not performing adequately? Whew, that's a great question. I feel like the last 2 days, that's it right there. Like you nailed it, is they can't. The answer is they can't. And I wondered today, now I know Jefferson being sidelined, you need guys to run routes out there for JJ McCarthy. But I almost wondered if a little bit of all the rotation was need somebody to be able to get these guys the football. And the second string quarterback's not doing it. And there was a throw today from Howell. And this isn't going to be the bag on Sam Howell show. We'll move on, quickly, I promise. And, here's another scroll for you. I don't care that much about the backup quarterback, but I do for this perspective of exactly what you're talking about, which is we're going to wonder about these battles. Is Thayer Thomas taking the next step? Can anybody step up? I haven't really seen any of Silas Bolden. I think that he is probably just a punt returner, and that's the only thing he's kind of here to do. But the rest of the guys, Rondale Moore, Ty Fleming, they want to have these guys be able to get, reps. Felton, Dante Fleming is another guy. But Ty Felton, like they need these guys to get the football. and they're just not getting it. And if you take a sack and you don't even throw the ball, because a lot of times when a quarterback takes a sack, they'll still throw it and finish the play. But that didn't even happen on a rep today. I mean, that's just everybody just going and running around like it's a playground. You need the ball to come out. And that was frustrating. And there was a throw today where I kind of looked over at Kevin O'Connell, and I think you guys know this look by now with O'Connell, where he just, where he kind of throws his head to the side and just looks a little bit like, he's not a yelling type of screaming coach, but everybody has frustration levels. And it was a play that most of the receivers went down the field, and Howell checked it down. I think it was just 7-on-7, but he checked it down to Ty Chandler, and the check down was a bad throw, and it was at Chandler's feet. And it was just, is this what we're doing here? And he's got to pick it up soon because they need to practice. They need to have these guys getting the football. Son of a Beaver says Christian Wilkins for the one-time question. Yeah, I figured that would come up, and I have to look because the news dropped right as I was coming on the air. So the Raiders are releasing Christian Wilkins. I'm reading this off my Adam Schefter, update that goes to my phone. So they're voiding his $35 million guaranteed money, and the NFLPA is filing a grievance. So that must mean that Wilkins has a very serious injury. I believe it was a foot injury. He played against the Vikings in the preseason last year. When did he get hurt? Did he get hurt in that game? Or early in the season or something. I mean, it was a pretty bad injury, and that must be why they're doing this. So the answer for me would have to be, if his team's releasing him, can the guy even play? Like, is it possible that he can even get on the field again? Or could this be a career ending injury for Christian Wilkins? And, free agency last year, what the Vikings did was phenomenal. I mean, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, all these key players they brought in. But I think they did want Christian Wilkins, and maybe it was bad luck of what happened for his injury. But sometimes in free agency, it's just like the draft. You have to have things go your way. Kind of like how Rick Spielman tried to re-sign Matt Khalil once upon a time, and he also tried to sign Russell Okung, and the backup option was Riley Reif, who was good. It wasn't Christian Darrisaw, but he was good for years, and they just kind of landed on that. So this is one of those maybe dodge the bullet situations for Christian Wilkins, but I wouldn't expect that they would have that conversation based on where his health is at. I don't know if anyone is going to be able to have that conversation. I hope so. I mean, he's a really good player. I hope that this isn't career ending for him. Matt says, biggest thing this offseason was for the offense getting a weapon in the short passing game. Love that they doubled up with that with Moore and Felton. And those two seem to be the wide receiver column 4 and 4A at this moment, I suppose. Moore being the first guy up when Jefferson was not in for a few reps, and Ty Felton came in pretty soon after that. And I thought that Felton has looked pretty comfortable, and Rondale Moore has looked really good in these first few days. That is a big camp question, is it if I'm assuming Addison's going to be out 3 games, could be 2, but either way, someone's got to be in that role. And also, I mean, Jalen Nailor, a lot of times you watch Jalen Nailor on a play where he doesn't get the football and he's got an edge on a guy. He's outrunning somebody down the field. If the quarterback threw it to him, he probably, would have a good chance at a long play. But the other 2 receivers are just so good that sometimes you feel like, oh man, nobody has run more mileage without getting the football open than Jalen Nailor. But I think that he's looked good so far in these first couple days. The muscle didn't disappear, the extra muscle that he put on from minicamp, but Nailor is preparing himself to move up into that spot. So then it's between these other 2. And you're right about the playmaking element. I think we really saw just a little tiny hint of that today for Rondale Moore. Joel says every year the Eagles sign a player at a position that they already had a decent amount of depth and continue to dominate. The Vikings have an opportunity to do that with Wilkins. We got to find out if Wilkins is even going to play. And I don't disagree with you. I mean, even when we were talking about, Jair Alexander, Jalen Ramsey. My thing was, you've already come this far with these guys. You've already spent a ton of money on veteran players. What's one more? What's rolling the dice on one more great veteran player to bring in? And if Christian Wilkins was healthy enough, there's a lot of caveats here, that if he was healthy enough to play 500 snaps, and you could sign him for a very cheap amount with very little guarantee that you have no risk for the future, then of course, yeah, take that guy. Have Jonathan Allen, Javon, the all injured last year team, the Minnesota Vikings 2025. But even if you could get 450 snaps out of somebody who's that good, foot injury for a defensive tackle sounds pretty scary. And if his team was willing to go this far to void the guarantees, I mean, I can't remember the last time we've seen that. Maybe you guys know, but I can't remember the last time we've seen a team sign a player for $100 million and then a year later be like, no, we are not paying the guarantees. You have this injury. And I'm sure there's more details that we're going to find out very soon. Dayton YT says feels like a natural fit for Josh Metellus to fill in Harrison's role once he retires, but I would prefer Harrison never retires. Yeah, fair enough on that second part. It does. It does. And that's why it's sort of like the Jeff Okudah thing where I oscillate back and forth between, on one hand, Brian Flores knows what he's doing and he gets benefit of the doubt because he's earned it. When he got here, this defense was a wreck. It was top 5 last year. And they won 14 games, and we give Darnold a lot of credit. He deserves it, but we cannot forget how good the defense was last season. And a lot of the reason why the Vikings were as good on defense was how good Flores is at identifying talent. So if he says, and finding the right roles for guys, right? So if he says, I want Josh Metellus to play in more of a deep safety spot on first and second down, I have an amount of skepticism on it because I don't see quite the same skill set as players like Anthony Harris or Cam Bynum who have succeeded in that role. And yet at the same time, I have to believe that he knows what he's doing with Josh Metellus, right? So you're kind of back and forth because there would be no Josh Metellus if not for Brian Flores. But I think you make a good point that it could be a now and later type of decision. Get the best 11 on the field, clearly one of the best 11. Just fit them in the best way you can and make the moving parts move. And then after Harrison Smith retires, that's your new Harrison Smith. I think it's a fair theory. I think it has a lot to do with Dallas Turner. And I think it has a lot to do with the front being as good as it is. So now you kind of want to play a base defense more often. You want to play where you've got Blake Cashman, Ivan Pace, and the whole front four. And maybe you want to play a nickel more also where Byron Murphy is in. And then only in those dime situations, you're putting in Theo Jackson to play the deep over the top. And also, if you look around the league, this is just a fact that early downs, a lot of teams are throwing shorter than they ever have before. That deep shots are down. Not last year in Minnesota, but were around the league. So maybe your idea is, well, if explosive plays and deep shots are down, then maybe having Metellus as someone coming up to make tackles against the run game. It's better to have more tacklers on the field when you're playing the Eagles, the Ravens. Like you could see the logic. It's not, oh my gosh, what are they doing? I'm definitely not feeling that way. I'm just curious about it. When something's different like that for a player who's been here for as long as he has, it's just interesting. Aaron, did they do any punt returns? Not real ones. There's some warm-up. Maybe I got some film of that earlier. Some warm-ups where they're just kind of throwing the ball to the guys. But we'll have to get a look at that. I saw Miles Price over there. He's one to kind of keep an eye on for that punt returning competition, along with Silas Bolden. But no punt returns as of today. When they do, though, I will be ready with my camera if we're still in a filming session. And if we're not, with my notepad, writing down every player who's returning the punts. But I do see Isaiah Rodgers still back there with those guys. I saw because they do some warm up, and I did see him there today. I don't know if they're actually going to do that. If they're actually going to do that with Isaiah Rodgers, I personally would say no, that they shouldn't. If he's going to be CB2, which he clearly is right now, I would lean against having him return anything. That position is just too valuable. Let's see. Son of Beaver says, did Miles Price stick out at all? He had the same build as Silas Bolden. Heard a lot about Bolden on kick and punt returns. Miles Price is definitely a guy to watch. Went to Indiana, returned a lot of punts there, had a really good season, and was part of really good Indiana team last year. So you're right. Well, Bolden had that amazing punt return for Texas in the college football playoff. It was very memorable. And even though Price is also undersized, Bolden is super undersized. So he stands out right away. It's like, oh, it looks like Marcus Sherrill's out there returning punts. But yeah, that punt return battle, that's one where when we go into preseason and we do the like, here's the 10 things we're going to watch, the punt return battle really has to play out on the field. And we're going to hear more from Matt Daniels, maybe tomorrow, I think, from Matt Daniels. So I'll try to bring you some of that about the return battles. It really has to play out in actual games. There's no good way to simulate the speed and the violence of that play in practice. Andrew says, if Rodgers looks good throughout camp, any chance they extend him before he gets expensive and has a breakout season? Probably not. We'll see if I think the scroll is required for this. It's only been 2 practices, so maybe not quite thinking yet about I haven't thought about an Isaiah Rodgers extension, but it could be a really good find for them. And then in the offseason, they could do something like that. But you're not going to do it after training camp. You just signed him to a contract. He's not going to do it after training camp. When they signed Josh Metellus to that early deal, the reason that they were able to pull that off was because Metellus had been a 6th-round pick. He had been cut and had a couple years in the league and was ready to hit free agency. And so he was thrilled to get a contract like that, projecting what he was going to do because he hadn't done it yet and had only played a couple hundred defensive snaps. This is different. Rodgers has been in the league for a while. If he had a great year this year, then you're looking at him as a long-term option. He is 27, but with great speed, the way that he has, I think he can be pretty good for, a little while, but we'll have to see how it comes along. It just looks to me like Isaiah Rodgers might be another one of those Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman type of guys that are just starting to ascend and hit their peak in the NFL. I mean, Rodgers is a unique case where he was ascending with the Indianapolis Colts, and then he got suspended for an entire year for a gambling issue, which he allowed someone else to use his account and they made bets under his name. That's the story, at least. And so he was out for an entire year. Now he comes back. So he is a player that was on the rise before that. Then he came back with Philadelphia. They draft 2 amazing corners. He plays a fair amount of snaps and started a few games. And then here he is. So this is one of those situations that you could argue, well, he is one of those players that hasn't yet hit his peak, even though he's 27 years old. Anthony says, how is Turner looking in coverage? Just in general, and I'll bring you the conversation in a little bit here with Dallas Turner, but just in general, the vibes surrounding Dallas Turner are very good. He in 7-on-7s is playing in a coverage role. And he said to me when I asked him, and you'll see it later, but he said that he was just paying attention last year, especially to everything Andrew Van Ginkel did when it came to playing in coverage. And I think that he is getting more comfortable in that role, especially because he's been working on it all offseason, OTAs, minicamp, in those 7-on-7s. He's one of the guys that is dropping back into coverage. Normally, you don't have a Grenard, or even Van Ginkel usually doesn't take a lot of those 7-on-7s because it's usually linebackers and secondary, but he's doing that, which indicates to me that they want him to be really good in coverage. And I think he moves very uniquely, but just in general, he looks like, I don't want to say a completely different guy, but kind of physically. He looks like he grew up a lot in this offseason. And he also mentioned working with 3 or 4 different specialist type of people, whether it's, pass rush specialist or a trainer, all the things that you should be doing. And he worked out with Jonathan Grenard right after the season. And I just think it shows. I just think it shows for him. Nick says, how's the first team O-line looking? Until we get pads, can't really make an assessment. I don't think there's been any trouble executing the plays that they've asked them to do so far. There have been some guys, getting into the backfield, but that's a period where if you are Jonathan Grenard, if you're Javon Hargrave, like you're not going after people. I think I did see Blake Brandel kind of get beat today, but he's not going to start. I think so far it's been fine, but that's a pads thing for sure. Then we'll really get the sense. Like, are they getting destroyed? And you're also playing one of the best D lines in the league. So we have to, make that change as well. Somebody like poor Donovan Jackson, man, I mean, that guy comes in and here's Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, dudes that are 10 years older than you who have racked up dozens of sacks and have been Pro Bowlers or played on teams that went to the Super Bowl and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, welcome to the league, Donovan Jackson. Aaron, tight end 3 competition update. Well, the one update that's not so hot is that Gavin Bartholomew, when Kevin O'Connell gave his injury update, that is the 6th round pick from Pitt, for those who don't have the depth chart in front of them, he said more or less, I'll get a sense for his recovery next week or something to that extent, like hoping to check back on his situation next week, which just didn't sound that promising for Gavin Bartholomew getting back on the field right away. So that means 2 other guys get a chance, Ben Urasek, Bryson Nesbitt, also Giovanni Ricci, the veteran who came in from Carolina. But the same issue has happened with the backup quarterbacks. I haven't seen either one of those guys get a football yet. I don't think. Urasek might have got a swing pass or a check down or something. They really do need the backup quarterback to start executing stuff. And that is the one thing you could say about Nick Mullins. Look, you can say whatever you want about Nick Mullins. Guy did not throw a good football. In fact, threw a pretty horrible football. But he knew where he was going with the ball. He gave them a chance to evaluate people. He gave them a chance to develop people in practice. That is not what Sam Howell is doing so far. After 2 days. 2 days. So he may be just, it's not the easiest offense to just step into, but he's had enough time now where you should at least be able to get the football to a couple wide receivers in a practice and a couple of safeties in practice. You should be able to do that. CJ says, crystal ball. Oh yeah. Ben Gessling will be on the show soon enough. No doubt. I wanted enough practices to go by so we can have enough information to do a crystal ball episode. Ben Gessling from the Star Tribune. We'll definitely connect with him very soon on the show. A lot of guests from TCO Performance Center coming up. Certainly Kevin Seifert. Emily Leiker is new on the beat. Make sure you guys find and follow her work at the Star Tribune. So she'll be on. Ahmad Hicks was on the show a few weeks ago from Fox 9. We've got plans to do another podcast with him. The 9 questions with Ahmad Hicks from Fox 9. We'll do that. But anyway, so your crystal ball prediction is Jeff Okudah, a pick 6 to seal Christmas Day win over the Lions. That's good. That would be good. Hey, the revenge game narratives are going to be everywhere. I don't get the sense that Jeff Okudah is really that kind of guy, that he's somebody who's going to be looking for revenge, but maybe it's a little bit of extra fuel in the tank. It could happen because you have a defense that is really good and it might play to his strengths. So it could happen with Jeff Okudah. It's not something I'm counting out. It's also not something that I'm buying into after 2 days without pads fully. Let's see. No one says Lucky Jackson, ? Yep. Lucky Jackson's one of those guys, funny enough, kind of reminds me of Tristan Jackson. Maybe you guys remember Trish season for Tristan Jackson. Every time we were out there, and he would make a catch, I would say, to the other reporters, like, it's Trish season, guys, because in camp, in mini camp, training camp, 3rd team reps, Tristan Jackson just dominated it. Lucky Jackson has been the 2nd team guy who always is reliable, and he's out there and he catches the football. But there isn't really he's 27. There's not really another level to that. I think Lucky Jackson could play in games if they needed him to, but you would much rather have your Rondale Moore. You would much rather have your Ty Felton as being the guys who are there being elevated and instead of, somebody like Lucky Jackson, who's kind of a classic. He's way better than most college players, and he's not quite as good as most NFL players. That's why he ended up in the XFL initially, because of that. It's a Liz Frank or Liz Frank injury for Wilkins. Yes, Andrew Van Ginkel, I think, did have that. Um, I mean, if he's not even practicing because he's got this nasty injury, I don't know. I don't know. It would look, if they think he's healthy enough to take a shot on, I guess it makes sense. But Ryan brings this up. What are the chances that Wilkins gets back and could be better than Jalen Redmond? Don't think that it's high. A foot injury for a defensive tackle sounds pretty bad. And if the Raiders aren't a good organization still. Like, they're run by Pete Carroll. That helps their cause. And they've got a new general manager. They haven't been a good organization. So you could see them making some sort of grave error. That could happen. But a team does not want to do this. A team does not want to have one of the best players in the whole league in Christian Wilkins and then have to go through a fight with the NFLPA, who's, I don't know, are you and I running the NFLPA at this point? I guess we are. Like, who's in charge of the NFLPA right now? It's a circus. So I'm guessing the NFLPA is not going to pull through for Christian Wilkins here, but it's not good. I mean, you sign the guy for that much money. Everybody's excited. He's one of the best players at his position. It's a huge signing. Now, I know that was the previous regime, but you probably come in when you're Pete Carroll, you take the job and you think, all right, got Christian Wilkins. And then he's not able to get out there, and the foot injury is so serious that you void his guarantees. That doesn't sound to me like somebody who's going to be ready to jump back in and contribute, but I guess you never know. But speaking of Jalen Redmond, he's one of those guys that I'm planting the flag. Jalen Redmond. He's going to be the guy. Now, Levi Drake Rodriguez seems a little bit too excited to be out there so far. It's been very clearly, though, it is very clearly the backups to Allen and Hargrave are Levi Drake Rodriguez and Jalen Redmond as of today. But it's only been 2 practices. But as of this moment, those 2 guys are the ones that are the backups there. And Redmond, he gets in the backfield. Like, he's got a talent for that. He gets low and he's quick and seems to have good hands. So I like where they stand with that. I like where they stand with Jalen Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez. And Levi, he looks bigger to me. He looks strong. Like, he's again, a little much so far, but I think both of those guys could make for rotational players, and then we'll see on everybody else. Jude says, where does Tyrion Ingram Dawkins line up and how did he look? I've seen him at both positions, inside and outside, because I was, making sure we're always kind of the reporters cross-checking with each other. Like, hey, did you see on that play? Like, who was in on that play? That kind of thing. And so I was cross-checking with everybody else today. Like, am I seeing this right? That Ingram Dawkins is on the outside linebacker today, but I thought I saw him inside, and he's rotating in. Right now, it's pretty clearly on the inside. Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez, and then Tyamani and Ingram Dawkins have worked in there. I saw a little bit of Elijah Williams was in there today. That was kind of a third team type of rep, but at least, a couple out there, the guy from Morgan State. But it looks like right now, Ingram Dawkins would be more in the development phase as opposed to the he's ready to play phase. The guys who developed last year, they're ahead of him early on in camp. Son of Beavers, how did Jordan Mason look? Because the man answers questions like the teacher just called on him during class, short and to the point. He is not a long-winded fellow. I learned that pretty early. He is very much straight to the point. Here's the thing that stood out to me. I did mention this last night, but I'll describe a play from today that confirmed this even more to me. I was thinking in my head of Jordan Mason as a guy who is just, hey, you pitch him the football, outside zone, can cut back up inside, and like that's your Jordan Mason, right? But the times that they've thrown him the ball, I thought he's looked very smooth catching it. And there was a play today where JJ McCarthy drops back and he goes through his progression, and he kind of just he feels one thing I noticed from McCarthy is that he has a clock in his head. He understands, even in a 7-on-7 drill, all right, 1, 2, 3 balls got to come out somewhere. And so he kind of got to his right, no, to his middle, no. And then the check down to Jordan Mason was to his left, and he fired it at him. And it was not the most accurate pass. And Mason corralled it outside of his body, just brought it right in very smoothly. I think he does have some natural hands, Jordan Mason. I think it's going to be the 1-1A situation. Mason he looks so big and so smooth out there that I do think they're going to play him a lot. And I think they actually can throw him the football. Steven, leader of the clubhouse for Mr. Mankato after day 2. After day 2. This will be good. Steven, I know you watch a lot and I appreciate you. Ask me again after like day 4 and day 8 or what, keep asking me again and we'll see kind of where we're at with that. That'll be fun to do. After day 2, I don't know. I might have to go with Zamiah Vaughn after day 2, just because we've said his name so many times. And, he got some praise from the defensive coordinator. Maybe that's enough right now. Jude said, I would prefer not signing Wilkins because he's injured. We still have Allen, Hargrave, Phillips, but also Ingram, Dawkins, Redmond, and LDR as well. Right. I think that they like where they are at with that defensive line, especially if those guys are healthy. But there is always that conversation of sometimes opportunities present themselves. And you have to consider it. If they had information that Wilkins would be healthy by week 8, just for example, just throw it out there. And maybe the Raiders are playing games. That's also possible as well. Maybe they're playing games and they're worried about his long-term future. But hey, if you signed him in week 8 or week 6 on a 1-year deal for the rest of the season, or you signed him now and he would be available in week 6 for the rest of the season, the more talent you can get. When a lot of times in the past, when things like this came up, my disposition was I'd rather see them just figure it out with certain guys than go after this guy or the other guy. Well, the spot that I'm in right now with this roster is, there's some talented guy. Well, maybe you should look into it. There's a Jair Alexander. Maybe there's a Jalen Ramsey. Definitely. There's a Christian Wilkins. Well, possibly. I mean, let's say they signed him and it was 1 year up to 10 million based on a number of snaps or something. And it was 5 million guaranteed. Like, it's a small amount of money because who's taking that risk? And you got to play him 400 snaps over the final 5 weeks of the season and go into the playoffs with him. Well, like, now you've got my attention. But also, if his injury is so bad that his career might be over, well, then, maybe not. Kit Fisto's dental plan says, every time I read dental plan, I think of The Simpsons. Lisa needs braces. If you know that reference, you're as old as me. Says, does Eric Wilson look like a guy who's going to get reps from scrimmage? I think so. The thing about Brian Flores is he does find ways to use certain players, but he's outside of the D-line, not a massive rotate guy. Like, you're going to see Blake Cashman and Ivan Pace a lot. I don't think you're going to see too much Eric Wilson coming in for Ivan Pace, as in, we're going to do something a little different here. I think they like Pace, and he's going to play a lot. But maybe every once in a while, Eric Wilson could mix in. I don't know. I think the biggest thing is that just when it comes to Eric Wilson, he can do whatever you need. He could play both linebacker positions, ton of special teams. He can blitz if you want. He can cover if you want. I think he's one of those, it's week 8 and Cashman's out for 3 weeks with a hip pointer or something, and you need Eric Wilson. Oh, that's great. Whereas last year, he's out for a couple weeks and it's devastating because you have to play, and, Kamu Grugier-Hill tried his best, but he was a special teamer. He was not a starting type of linebacker and was forced into it. Rob says, does Rodgers look bigger than the 170 he's listed at? Yeah. Oh, you could do a whole thing on listed weights, man, for sure. No, he's not 170. He's not that tall, but he's not 170. I'm sure that's what he came out at. The college, how about like the college weights? I think the college they listed Tyamani at like 330 pounds in college. He was 309 when they actually weighed him. But imagine if he was 6'2 and 330, he would have looked like a giant balloon. That was kind of how Michael Pierce, his body was because he wasn't that tall. Yeah, I'm sure Isaiah Rodgers is bigger than that. He actually looks like strong, not just fast. When they signed him, I also looked at that, and I'd seen him play before, but I wondered myself, like 170, is that right? No, is not 170. Now here you're going too far into deep into the woods, son of beavers. How did Tim Jones and Tavere Thomas look? Pretty sure they were brought in to be the gunners on special teams. Haven't seen the special teams. Those are guys that we will try to figure out a little bit more when it comes to the preseason games. But Tim Jones has caught some passes out there. He's wearing number 14. It's weird to see number 14 catching passes still after so many years of Stephon Diggs. But I don't know which one of them. Like Tavere Thomas got some reps today with the second team because Metellus was not practicing, and Jones got in there for a few plays with the rest of the rotation. I didn't really bring him up, but he caught a pass or two. So, I mean, we'll see. Like that punt gunner spot is something that's I think it is a battle between those two to see which one makes the roster in that position. But funny, last year, the punt gunner who turned out to be great was Trent Sherfield, and he wasn't even the punt gunner when they came out of training camp. I think they had some issues with that position last year, and then he convinced Matt Daniels. Yeah, he told me that midway through the season, sort of convinced Matt Daniels, like, hey, I can play this gunner position. Give me a chance. So, the feeling on Jordan Mason so far is that he looks really huge, and I wouldn't want to tackle him, but we haven't seen the physical element yet, and we probably won't. Like this training camp, you don't want to see too much of that. Maybe in joint practices a little bit. As far as short yardage carries, that's just not really how a training camp practice works. Because a short yardage carry is about ramming your face into someone else's face, and that they're just not going to do that in training camp. Like the run plays are offensive and defensive line practice and just hit the right spot. That's basically where it is, right? Is you just kind of like try to hit the right spot when it comes to Jordan Mason, but don't get hurt. There's a lot of don't get hurt in Kevin O'Connell's practices, and that's a smart thing. Brandon says Felton has a problem catching if I know my stuff. I don't know if you know your stuff, Brandon. I don't know if you know your stuff because he hasn't had any problems catching so far. In college, they didn't really have a quarterback that could throw, and a lot of his stuff was underneath. There were a few drops, I suppose. When I looked at the drop numbers, it didn't jump out to me that there was, huge drop numbers, but yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if you know your stuff or not. He's caught some nice passes so far, though. Had a good one today. Had a good one yesterday. One really nice one in mini camp. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know where that comes from. I didn't think hands were really an issue with him. If there's one thing with Felton, it's that he's wiry. So he's tall and he's lanky, but he's crazy fast. And sometimes with those skinnier, wiry guys, defensive backs get their hands on him, and it's hard for them to get off the line of scrimmage. That can be kind of an issue, but I don't think catching the ball has been a problem for him. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see. Bob says, could you ask some defensive players about McCarthy? Not if you already do. Yeah, well, the defensive players have talked about McCarthy a little bit. They've talked about just his vibe, his aura, as the young people are now saying all the time, and what they see from him just running a practice. But they're working on their stuff more than anything, more than they are watching the quarterback. But I think everybody's gotten the sense that McCarthy knows how to lead a team and run a practice, but it's, they're not running off the field and they're playing against the offense out there. But yeah, we'll get to talk to just about everybody at some point. Herm says, how did Elijah Williams look? And I mean, there are a lot of people with the last name Williams, but Herm, if you're related to Elijah, I am wishing him the best as one of those dark horse type of players that we've seen sometimes throughout the years go from a late ad, somebody who absolutely blew up the HBCU All Star game. And I think he had 8 pressures in that game. And then the Vikings signed him as somebody who has potential to make the practice squad and develop. That's where I see him. And if you look at his production in college, if he takes the long path to developing the way that they ask him to develop, there is a chance he could carve out a role. And I think he landed in the best place to do it because Elijah is not 290 pounds, but he's also not 240 pounds. And in a lot of teams, that tweener just doesn't really fit. But with the Vikings, they haven't minded that. Like Jalen Redmond has a similar type of body where he's not, you know, 320 or something. He's more like 280, but he gets into the backfield, and that's what Elijah is good at. But going from Morgan State to the NFL, it's a big jump. So kind of like Levi Drake Rodriguez last year, has to take everything he can away from this year to develop and just watch Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen and do everything that they do and start to figure it out. And if you show enough, then you've got an opportunity to develop through the next offseason and maybe get a chance to make the team like we're seeing from Levi Drake Rodriguez. So it's a good example. But I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. The number one thing that correlates, this is going to shock everybody, right? From college to the NFL is production. And Elijah Williams was very productive. David says, any noticeable improvements in Felton's route running? I have thought so. It might just be confirmation bias because he's made catches. So like, hey, if a guy's making the catch, he must have done something right, you know? But I have thought that he looked like he took to heart whatever feedback he got throughout minicamp because it looked a little bit mechanical. But that's the thing about minicamp, and the reason they call it the learning phase is because these guys are literally learning the steps to the routes and how you get out of them. Whereas in training camp, they're really running them at full speed. So I've thought so. I think that he's had just a nice start. Okay, a few of you do get the Simpsons reference. That's great. I just think Felton's had a really good start to these first couple of days of camp. And it's only been 2 practices, but he's looked quick. He's made catches, 2 of them not the easiest catches out there. And as always, playing time in practice tells us more than anything else. We try to use our eyeballs as much as we can, but really the thing that's going to tell us the most is who they put out there, because they're going to give the starters the most reps, the best players. They're going to give the second best players, the guys they want on the depth unit, the second most snaps in practice. There's no way to hide that from us. So the fact that Felton's getting a bunch of reps and mixed in today and is getting a bunch of reps with the second unit, I think that tells us where they stand. How did Kobe King do? He is a guy that I think a lot of fans are going to like. I think a lot of fans are going to like Kobe King. He is on the bigger side. I think he moves really well for a guy his size. Kind of strikes me as what they used to call a 2-down linebacker, and somebody who's going to do a lot on special teams. That's my expectation for his first year. And he's been out there with Eric Wilson. That's a great guy to learn from. But he's been on that second unit and ahead of Brian Asamoah, which again tells us something. Bob says, what's your feel on backup quarterback upgrades? Is there a watch list? And don't say Cousins. I don't think yet. We might have to put a date on it, though. We may have to put a date on, like, when do we start saying, like, how many practices can look like this before we start saying, okay, offer Carson Wentz a boat. Doesn't he like to fish or something or hunt? Like, offer him a tree stand along with a contract or whatever it needs to take to get a real backup quarterback in here. That's how it feels right now after 2 practices. But we're going to need a little more time with Sam Howell. They do have to figure out how to execute these reps when JJ McCarthy isn't in there. And if you want to come up with a watch list, go ahead. I know Beavers like CJ Beathard. Maybe. And Max Powers, hey, there's another Simpsons reference. Max Power got it off a hairdryer. Says is QB2 on the team as we speak. You said as we speak. Doesn't look like it, but he's gonna have to make progress quickly because just because he's played in the league before for whatever amount of time doesn't mean he's any good. His numbers for Washington, and there's all the excuses, and the excuses are fine and they're right, but they're not good. You lead the league in interceptions and sacks. That's bad, friends. That's not something that, is really exciting for him to be QB2. And so if it looks like this and you can't even evaluate your wide receivers and tight ends, then yeah, they need to consider somebody else. I mean, so Felton dropped 9 passes and caught 91. No, is that a night? Well, would you go by targets or would you go by catch? I guess you go by catches. What's a 9% drop rate? Is that like good? Oh, he had a high drop rate. See, I looked at that and I just didn't think that it stood so far out to me that I would be that concerned. He's caught everything so far, but think about drops, and this is not to excuse it, but when JJ McCarthy is throwing you the football, it's just a lot different than the Maryland quarterback. So that could play into it as well. I don't know how sticky that stat is from college to the NFL. It might be. First name, last name says we're gonna have to get you a better, some of these people have really creative nicknames here. Yours is just first name, last name. Says with Brosmer, it seems you think his ceiling is a backup, but he sounds like he has got the smarts for the position. Is it a size arm thing like Browning and Heineke? Yeah, I think it really is probably a physical tools thing. Like if you think about Max Brosmer and his IQ and his work ethic and his leadership, and I think he throws an accurate football. But if he had size, speed, and his arm is good, but it's not JJ McCarthy, then he wouldn't have ended up at New Hampshire for most of his college career. Like he would have been probably somewhere like Minnesota plus, probably more than Minnesota even. I think he is a guy that's come a long way, but when you're looking for the thing about ceilings with quarterbacks is you're looking for guys who can be not just a quarterback who can start, but somebody who can win the Super Bowl. So that's a really high cutoff. I mean, when you see JJ McCarthy throw the football and you see him move, and then you see someone like Brosmer, you go, okay, I get it. And Browning's a good example. That's a good backup. I think any team would take Jake Browning as their backup quarterback. There's nothing wrong with having a backup quarterback career. It's a compliment to say I think an undrafted free agent could be a UDFA. Or I mean, to be a UDFA can be a backup quarterback. That is a compliment for sure. So I mean that in the best way for Max Brosmer. And maybe under the right circumstances, he could start and play and win some games. But he's only practiced one time actually getting reps. So he's got a long way to go. But I do see somebody who could be in the league for a while just based on how he handles himself in these huddles, getting in and out of the huddle, handling the drills, the red zone drills in minicamp, stuff like that. It looks to me like he could even be a backup next year, potentially. So got to do preseason, got to play well, got to beat out Brett Rippon first. You beat out Brett Rippon first, then we'll start to talk. Let's see. Ploy AM or Ploy AM. You guys know I am like a little bit like Ron Burgundy with some of these names. So says coming to the pod late. Hey, Brian Flores said you got to be on time. So let's do that next time. We know JJ can rifle passes to anywhere, but how has he looked layering passes so far? That looked good in the first day. Didn't think that he had many opportunities to do that today. That's been something that's just been growing and growing and getting better and better from day one with that. He's still going to rocket the football. That's what he does. It's how he throws. He's not Drew Brees. He's not Phillip Rivers, where he's just guiding these, beautiful floating passes into receivers' arms. Like he's going to whip it. But I think he has gotten so much better. Even when you watch him in practice, when he first got here, he was warming up and trying to do it, and it wasn't having a lot of success. but it's gotten better and better. It's not going to be like Darnold right away. There's going to be a lot of see it and throw it. Like today, just for example, Jordan Addison was coming across the middle of the field, maybe call it 12 yards down the field. And there were two defenders converging on him. And McCarthy just ripped it and threw it in between the two defenders for a completion. I think it was Theo Jackson who was kind of coming down on the play, trying to make a play on the football, and he got it there before Jackson could get there. That's his wheelhouse. His wheelhouse isn't necessarily a 20-yard deep out where it's, cover two and he's got to fit it just over the corner and just in front of the safety and you guide it with this. That's not where he is right now. He's 22. It's his first season. His wheelhouse is ripping it into windows. But he's definitely got better at that. Had a great layered throw on a deep ball to Addison on day one. Let's see. LDR Believer is looking at the position groups across the division. Obviously, we'll see at quarterback, but it seems the Vikings have the best units across the board. Probably defensive and maybe there's more to that comment. So I think secondary is the one that you're looking at that would be the biggest question. Detroit's got a better secondary for sure. Joseph, Branch, they bring in DJ Reed. That's a really good secondary. Robertson gave them problems last year. So that's the biggest question for the Vikings. But you go to the rest of the units. I mean, Detroit, they used to have the O-line, but now they got questions there. And the Packers have a lot of B or B plus units. The Vikings have some A, receivers, defensive line, if we count outside linebackers. So I do agree that they have a lot of the best units. The team that I'm just not too sold on is Chicago. They're going to have to prove it first. Max Powers with the $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Max. Says Kirk. Hey, Kirk could probably run these practices at least. Gary Quazzo. Okay, now your answers are funny. Jeff George. Yeah. Bow hunting for Carson. Is that what he needs? Tyler Huntley. Okay. I don't know if Tyler Huntley could do any better than this. What is Will Riker doing in these practices? That's a funny question, reconnected, because the kickers and the long snappers and the punters, not much in training camp. Not much. I don't usually look over there, but they're usually on another field and they tee one up and kick one or punt one every once in a while. I mean, what else is there to do until it's their time, as part of a drill? It is, if you get a chance to go to a practice, watch the kickers and punters sort of mingle. They mingle. That's what they do. They're minglers. And then they got to be ready when it's time to really kick or snap or whichever. Antonio says Coach McCardle wanted Ty Felton, so I believe they're going to give him the opportunity. Yeah. Oh yeah. And like he is really a great evaluator of talent, Keenan McCardle. And you can see, I mean, Felton caught a bunch of passes last year and he's still a developing type of player. So he's still starting to grow. And I think he's off to a good start. Whether he can be 3, 4, 5, whether he can mix his way in there, that's going to be seen over the next couple of weeks. But to have Moore and Felton get off to even a start over the first couple of days is really good for the wide receiver depth, to just have those guys look like they can get in there and play. And we'll see that's where we're starting, and we'll see where we end up finishing. So, okay, well, really good chat, guys. I've got some sound for you if you're interested. This is training camp season, right? That's what happens. Got to get back for the live show, get it set up with my beautiful video and all that. So I got 3 interviews here to play for you guys. One is with Dallas Turner, another with Jonathan Grenard, and also Byron Murphy Jr. So you guys can enjoy those interviews, and I'll sit here and drink my Arby's drink, I guess. But no, it's good conversation. Really good with Dallas Turner. This one I'm going to play first. Really good with Dallas Turner because he talked about his offseason, how much he's grown. And it is a big storyline of this offseason because if Turner takes the step forward, you have got one heck of a nasty front seven. It might be the best in the league. So here is, it was me and Andrew Kramer of the Star Tribune. Andrew asked a few more questions than I did But our conversation with Dallas Turner.
Had a good, had a good little summer work.
Just in general, how nice was this offseason and not to go through the draft process?
Just a little it's different than last summer. So, just had a little time off, just to, enjoy life a little bit. But at the same time, can't forget, why we're here and what got us here. So, still putting in work. But, just the opportunity, to go see the world, spend a lot of time with family. And, and just collaborate with my peers and stuff like that. So.
Bernard has said you were working out with him almost right after the season.
Yeah.
It sounds like you didn't take too much time.
Yeah, so, it's just, right after the season, me and him, we were still up here. We ain't go nowhere. So, we was up heading strong in the weight room, watching film, and just picking each other's brain. He has a lot of knowledge. He's one of the best vets, that I feel like is on the team. So, I feel like, it's just so ironic how I was going to commit to the University of Florida because of him and Coach Grantham and stuff like that, but roll tide till I die. But yeah, so it was just a good opportunity, just to be around him, during this off season, spend some time with him, just pick his brain, to just see how he got to his point in his career. So
did you ever tell him that, like, hey, I looked up to you at one point?
Nah, he knows. He's aware.
He knows.
Nah, he's aware.
Well, where's your head at going into this training camp?
Just bettering myself, just making sure that I fix all the mistakes that I did last year. And really just, just hitting it hard, being consistent, and listening to my coaches, and just getting better every day. It's a 1% thing. So.
Yeah, and in terms of you getting better, what are some of the areas you're focused on?
I feel like my just getting more comfortable, with the pace of the game. Getting familiar with offensive recognition and formations, plays, different tackle sets. Going against NFL players and stuff like that in general. So it's just just strength, speed, condition, all that stuff. So it's just really just an all-around overall thing for real. So
B-Flow was talking about just young players having to learn how to take care of their bodies and get bigger, stronger, faster after their first year. I guess how much did you learn from your first year about how to take care of your body, where you need to be?
I feel like I learned the most from our vets from last season. And especially during this off season too. Me and Brian Asamoah, we've been putting a lot of overtime, and it's really starting to pay off now. Just listening to all my vets. I'm the younger on the team still, and so it's still a lot of older vets that have a lot of knowledge and wisdom, that can pass down to the younger dudes. So I feel like I'd be stupid not to be a sponge and soak it all in. So.
How many individual trainers do you have for your various areas of focus?
Strength conditioning, I got my guys, up here, my dog Joe. And so back home, I got Shaq Sensei. And then, me and JG, we was tapped in with BT Jordan, on the pass rush side. And so really just all around.
Gotcha. And then I want to ask you about moving forward. What are your expectations of still having Grenard and Van Ginkel here? Because you talked about last year, needing to kind of bide your time. You still have a veteran-filled room. So what are you expecting this year?
All I could do is, is just still continue to learn, and just run my race, and just learn from these two dudes. They're all pro, 2 Pro Bowlers. So, I'll be stupid not to be a sponge. So, it's just that's all I can do, is just sit back, take whatever opportunity I get and, run with it. So as long as I get better, as a person and as a player, that's all that matters for.
So there you go, Dallas Turner. I think even going back to last year, I had a conversation with him, probably 10-minute conversation in the locker room last year after there had been some rocky times and he finally started to get onto the field a little bit more. And I've been impressed with his patience for this because sometimes with a first-round draft pick, you come into a situation where, gosh, if you went to any other team, you would have been playing a heck of a lot more, but it just happens to be the team with the second team All Pro and the Pro Bowler. And so you don't play as much and they're bringing you along a little slower. But I was impressed. Beavers is with the mindset. I agree with the mindset that Dallas Turner has had really going back to last year. And the biggest thing you hear there is he said that from day one of the offseason, he was working out with Jonathan Grenard. Grenard is, you just cannot say enough about what a incredible pro Jonathan Grenard is. That's the right guy to latch onto with the hip. So he's already got that going for him. He looks a lot bigger in the right ways. In his lower half, the trunk, the legs, you could tell, wow, like there's a lot that's been done there for sure. And even in the upper body, I think as well. But you could tell like that step that you look for physically is there. And then him taking on playing coverage, him taking on a role and just fitting in and being willing to do that, I think that all the things that they have said about him and his attitude toward this year all match up with the fact that they didn't go out and get somebody else. So Dallas Turner, I think he's had a very good attitude toward this. Speaking of Jonathan Grenard, we had a chance to chat with him today as well. So here's that.
This year. So now that they understand what we're about, it's easy for them to just come in and play ball and beat themselves.
Brian was talking about relying on you guys as veterans to kind of relay what his scheme is like and what his defense is like. How are you playing a bigger role in that this season?
No, for sure. I think it's a huge thing just because we've all seen it work. I was mentioning earlier, like we've all seen it work. And I think now when you put it on tape and you got guys who've done it before in the room and we're talking to them in a way that they understand it. And it's like, okay, well, he's not just giving us BS. Now it's like it's actually happening. This is actually real. And that way they can honestly put it to their work whenever we're doing drills and practice.
What do you see out of Dallas Turner now here too?
Oh man, I mean, if you look at him, he's gotten bigger, he's gotten stronger, faster. I mean, it just looks way different than last year. Mindset, he's more locked in. He's receiving coaching a lot better. I mean, I'm just ready to see what he can do now. I mean, at this point, I've worked with him pretty much all off season a good bit, and to see him put it, translate on here on the field, man, I'm excited to see what we can do.
Jonathan, it's a luxury going up against Jets specifically. How does basically iron sharpen iron that way, especially for the new guys learning like
right. 100%. The great thing about Jets too is he's not afraid to work. Some guys can be the best players and they don't like to work. They don't like to be touched. They don't like to get nitty gritty. And when it's time to work, to actually do that. Jets ain't about none of that. I mean, Jets can come out in flashy jewelry or whatever it is, but Jets is coming to work every single day. And he loves it. He loves when guys are giving him their best. He knows he's going to get their best because you're playing against the best receiver in the game. Every time you step across it, he's ready to go, and he wants you to bring it. Or if not, he's going to embarrass you. So that's just one of those things where it heightens all the competition across the board. Offensive line, D-line, running backs, everybody on this team, we're literally at the top of position in dang near every category. So whenever you line up on that football, you're going against some of the best players in the league.
What has been your first impression of playing with Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave?
Man, those guys are I can't even describe him. I know J.A. is a dog when it comes to pushing that pocket and just winning his matchups and just being a disruptive force. Hargraves, man, grave diggers we call him, man, he's a dog. I've been watching him since he's been in Philly, so I just know all about his game, and to see it actually in person, and that is no flaw. It's no flaw at all. I mean, it's everything you've seen on film, on display, and they're great dudes. I think it's so easy to play with guys like that who understand football, understand what we're trying to achieve here, been on different teams and different schemes, and understand that they can just be themselves as well, and that just lets them play fast and makes my job a hell of a lot easier.
Does it feel similar to like when you and Blake and Gink came in last year? It's like you talked about how easily you meshed. Has it been the same with those guys? Like they just get similar character people?
100%. I think that's just great. Hats off to KO and Quays, just how they bring in the guys that understand the scheme, understand football, that love football. At the end of the day, you got to love this stuff. I mean, as y'all seen today, it was a little muggy out here. I mean, it's not the prettiest sights to be out here just sweating for free. And at this time, when you see guys come in here and they're working their tail off as if they're rookies all over again, that mindset of just not being satisfied with where they are in their careers, I love that. And I think that's where this whole team is getting to. We're not satisfied at all.
Play to Florida, you should be fine.
Hey man, listen, Florida, Houston, I'm good. You see, I trained in Georgia all off season, so I'm good. This is nothing, but it's good to have a little switch up. So.
All right, there's Jonathan Grenard. Always a joy to listen to him talk about football. I think that he's a guy that always gives such great detail about his teammates and his own mentality. I didn't know anything about Jonathan Grenard when he got to the Vikings. And after the first press conference, I think a lot of us walked away and thought, okay, well, I think that guy is going to fit in pretty darn good here. And he has very, very well. But you heard his comments on Dallas Turner, again, where it seems that Grenard is the one that he kind of went to and has helped him come along. You got to remember how young Dallas Turner was when he stepped into the NFL. He was one of the youngest draft picks in the league. So a guy like Grenard is a great, great player to follow. Was it Anthony that said that you play videos when you're teaching on Zoom to save your throat? Well, I do have a voice of steel. I could keep going forever, but my thought was that I'm out there. And in the past, what I've been doing is I've been using just to write. I'll take the phone and I'll put it in the press conference and ask the questions, and I'll get the audio. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm live streaming here. Why shouldn't I share these interviews with you guys as well? So I'm trying to do my best camera work and audio work for you guys to bring you some of this on the live stream. Same with, I'm very proud if you just tuned in. I'm very proud of this, the the camp B-roll where we got guys jumping on a giant thing here. So we're trying to up our game. That's the point. Trying to up the game a little bit this year with the live streams from past years. Always trying to think of some new ideas. So before we wrap up for the evening, it's been a great conversation. Appreciate the big audience here tonight. And again, every time the Vikings practice, we go live after usually 7:30. Sometimes might be a little later, sometimes might be a little earlier, but usually about that time. So anyway, Byron Murphy Jr. also spoke with us today. So here is that conversation.
Sharpens iron, of course, and going up against Justin Jefferson, and that offense kind of a luxury, even this early in camp, right? Would you say so?
I would definitely say so. Obviously, we come here every day and get to guard the best. So obviously, the DBs get the best work, I would say. Obviously, we got other guys, Speed, EJ, all those guys on the receiver core. They just give us work every day. Like you said, Jess, obviously being the best receiver, we're going to go, try to guard him every single play, every chance we get.
How do they sharpen you personally?
Just like they're out there running routes, giving me the releases, giving me the looks. I feel like our offense does a great job of giving us different looks every single day at practice. And obviously, I think we have one of the best receiving core in this league. So we go out there and just work every single day.
What do you say to like the young guys coming in a B-flow defense, kind of a master class, right?
First thing is you kind of got to know multiple positions. Obviously, don't just lock into one. I think everything comes. You're going to go out there. He's going to put you in the right position. Obviously, Coach Flores just does the best at that, putting guys in the right positions. But as a young guy, obviously asking the older guys, questions, just going in there, watching tape and learning from it.
Byron, how have you felt about just working with Isaiah Rodgers? What have you learned about him so far?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's my guy right there. That's my bro. Obviously, like I said, he had experience too, and obviously he has a Super Bowl under his belt. So that's the level I'm trying to reach. But a great guy. That's my bro, like I said, and I'm just glad to be his teammate.
What do you see from his skill set? I mean, it seems like he has exceptional movement skills, speed, things like that. What do you see?
Definitely just footwork for sure. Footwork, definitely has speed. He can run with anybody. Ball skills too. He can go up there and get interceptions as well. Coach Hack kind of said some stuff like he might have more ball skills than you, so I got to go compete with him on that too. But no, he's just an all over around corner and can do everything.
I was curious. Jefferson.
Yeah, I was asking about Jeff Okudah, but if you're still on the Rodgers.
Oh yeah, no, I had something completely different. Go ahead.
Well, Jeff Okudah seems like a quiet guy. Have you gotten to know him much yet?
Oh yeah, he's kind of quiet, but no, he's definitely talking. We're in the locker room and stuff like that. He kind of opens up. But no, yeah, Jeff's another great teammate. Obviously, I kind of known him since back when he was in Detroit. So I kind of got some chances to see him actually on the field. But that's my guy too. We out here working together, and those three, and Isaiah too. But we're all just getting that connection, getting that feel for how each other play.
And what's the sense of kind of where his head's at? Like, what have you just with his career and how it's gone?
I just feel like he's out here every single day just working. I feel like that hasn't even been on his mind. I think he's just coming out here every day to compete and obviously just go out there and make plays. He's been doing that, so you can see where his mindset is now.
But you can kind of relate to that, right? Like, obviously you were good in Arizona. That's why this team wanted you.
Yes,
but
sir.
You came here and elevated your game. Like, what is it about this environment that helps players in the secondary?
Definitely. I feel like the culture. Obviously, I just feel like the locker room, I would say, number one, you got guys here that's going to push you every single day. Like JG just did after practice. He's a leader on this team. He's going to come in the huddle and let us know what type of practice we had. So I just feel like everyone just hold each other accountable. And that's just the standard around here, especially on the defensive side. We talk about it every day, come to work every single day. And they just take care of us. So when we're on that field, we got to go work.
Okay.
Camp feel any different for you than the previous ones?
I would say not really. Definitely for me, the game's definitely kind of slowing down for me, kind of seeing stuff a little bit early. So I love that about the game. But yeah, definitely kind of the same camp, still going in the same mindset. Got to go work, earn this and never give it. So just come in and keep making plays.
Is this the longest you've had the same defensive coach? I can't remember the turnover in Arizona.
I had the same coaches for 4 years.
Oh,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the random one I had was around the league, there was some data that showed that secondaries are playing more zone coverage than ever. And even just over the course of your career, that it's increased significantly, where you're not just as corners, like me versus you. There's a lot of knowing, I think, the entire picture. Just how have you seen that change, and why do you think that is? Like, why is there an increase in zone coverage?
I would definitely say, it's a team game, so I feel like you got players that could do a lot of different things at a high level. So I feel like you have to obviously put that into the game plan. I feel like you can go out there play man-to-man every single snap if you wanted to, but when you show other teams like different, schemes, it's going to kind of mess up the flow of the offense. The quarterback might have to think a little bit more, so I feel like that goes along with it. But I feel like you could still definitely go man a lot, which I still love. I want to go guard the best receiver, but zone kind of makes the quarterback go through all his reads. You got to figure out the right position to throw the ball to.
Yeah, what's the key of being a great zone corner?
I would definitely say IQ. Like I said, just knowing, kind of what plays, what formations are coming at you. And obviously you got to be a ball hawk to go get it. You just read the quarterback and you definitely go get the ball.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, sir.
All right, there you go. Great conversation with Byron Murphy Jr. We are, as media folk, pretty darn blessed with players who love breaking down the game, like Jonathan Grenard and Byron Murphy. Love talking to those guys. So hopefully you enjoyed those conversations. Tomorrow is another day, and I think we get our first break on Sunday. And I'm gonna be pretty tired at that. We're rolling. But one more thing before I go, make sure you check out the newsletter, purpleinsider.football. Got some major steam going on over there. I've been uploading some of these interviews over there as well that happen, as well as breaking down into 3 sections every camp practice. I've got what I heard, what I saw, and what I thought. And that will be in writing. So purpleinsider.football, make sure you check that out. And if you just like the show and want to find a way to support it, that would be a good way as well. So thank you all, and we'll do it again tomorrow. I'm glad that you all enjoyed the more video, the more sound. I will take more of it tomorrow at practice, and we'll go from there. So appreciate everybody, all your great questions, great conversation today, and we will catch you all very soon. We're rolling, folks. Tomorrow, it'll be 3 days. And maybe by next week, and the pads come on, we'll stop saying we'll see, and we'll start saying we are seeing. So appreciate y'all. Talk to you soon. Football.